The hall of the Galactic Council was old and quiet. Its walls were made of smooth stone that reflected soft light from above. Symbols of many worlds were carved into the floor. Some of them were bright and new. Others were worn down by time. This was a place where history was spoken, judged, and sometimes misunderstood. Historian Emily stood near the center platform. She was human, but she did not wear any uniform or badge of power. She wore simple clothing, dark and plain. In her hands was a small data slate. On it were records older than most living beings in the hall. As the council session began, the slate lit up, and the first record started to play. Images filled the air. Human ships moved through space, their shapes sharp and heavy. Weapons fired. Explosions bloomed like silent stars. Alien vessels broke apart. Voices followed the images, frightened, angry, afraid. The words were old, recorded long ago. They attack without warning. They do not retreat. They fight even when injured. They are monsters. Emily watched the faces around her. Many of the council members leaned back in their seats. Some folded their arms. Others whispered to one another. None of them looked surprised. They had seen these records before. They had grown up with them. To them this was history. To them this was truth. At the far end of the hall stood James. He was the human envoy sent not to argue but to listen. He stood with his hands at his sides, his posture calm. His face showed no anger, no fear. His eyes followed the images, but they did not linger on the destruction. Instead, they lingered on the dates, the locations, the small details most others ignored. Emily noticed this. She had worked with James before. She knew he listened more than he spoke. She also knew that this silence was often mistaken for guilt. The records continued. Humans fighting on barren planets. Humans standing their ground against forces larger than them. Humans refusing to surrender. Each clip ended the same way, with loss, with ruin, with fear. A voice from the council spoke, calm but cold. These are the records that define humanity. They are consistent. Violent behavior. High aggression. Unstable responses. The classification remains unchanged. Emily felt a tightness in her chest. She had spent years studying these same records. She knew them well. She also knew what was missing. She stepped forward. "Permission to speak," she said. The council paused. After a moment, the signal light changed color. Permission was granted. "These records are real," Emily said. Her voice was steady but soft. "But they are incomplete." A low murmur spread through the hall. "Incomplete?" one council member asked. "They show clear patterns." "They show moments," Emily replied. "Not causes." She tapped her slate and the image shifted. The same battles appeared again, but now new information layered over them. Warnings that had gone unanswered. Evacuation calls ignored. Borders crossed. Treaties broken. These events did not begin with human attacks, Emily said. They began with threats to human survival. James remained silent. He did not move. But Emily could feel his presence, steady and grounding, like a reminder that she was not alone. The council watched as the images slowed. A human ship held position while others fled. A damaged station shielded smaller vessels behind it. A group of human soldiers formed a line, standing between civilians and an advancing force. These moments were removed from the original summaries, Emily said. They did not fit the story. The hall grew quieter. One council member leaned forward. "And what story is that?" Emily took a breath. "The story of monsters." James finally looked up. His gaze met the council, not in challenge but in quiet patience. "Humans come from a harsh world," Emily continued. "Storms, predators, disease, scarcity. From the beginning, survival required resistance. When humans reached the stars, they carried that instinct with them. Not to conquer, but to endure." The records ended. The light faded. For a long moment, no one spoke. James shifted slightly, just enough to show he was ready to answer if asked. But no question came. Instead, another record began. This one showed early council meetings filled with fear after first contact. Warnings were issued. Restrictions placed. Human space was marked in red. The word monster appeared again and again, written in many languages. Emily watched the council now. Some members avoided her gaze. Others stared at the floor. A few watched James closely as if seeing him clearly for the first time. "The galaxy remembered the damage," Emily said quietly. "But it forgot the reason." James thought of Earth. Of stories passed down through generations. Of people who fought not because they wanted to, but because they had no other choice. He thought of how easily strength was mistaken for cruelty. The council session ended without a vote. As the hall emptied, Emily gathered her slate. Her hands trembled slightly now that the moment had passed. James approached her. "You did well," he said. She gave a small smile. "I only showed what was already there." "That's often the hardest part," James replied. They walked together toward the exit. Behind them the old records remained, but now they were marked for review. A small change. A slow one. But real. Outside the hall, the stars stretched endlessly. The galaxy was vast and memory was long, but not unchangeable. For the first time in a long while, the story of humans was no longer only about monsters. It was about survival. And the telling had just begun. The border station had been quiet for years. It sat between human space and alien trade lanes, old but important. When it failed, it did not fail slowly. One moment the lights were steady. The next, the station shook, metal screaming as power surged and systems collapsed. The distress call went out in every known language. An alien relief fleet answered first. Their ships arrived in careful formation, keeping distance from the damaged station. Old warnings filled their minds. Humans were nearby. Humans were dangerous. Humans made things worse. Then a human ship dropped out of jump space without warning. Some of the alien crews tensed. Defense systems powered up. Commanders shouted orders. But the human ship did not raise weapons. It moved straight toward the broken station. Captain Michael stood on the bridge, eyes fixed on the screen. Smoke and debris drifted from the station's hull. Parts of it were already open to space. "Life signs?" he asked. "Fading," Ashley replied from the engineering console. "Multiple breaches. Power grid unstable." "Then we don't wait," Michael said. "We go in." Ashley did not argue. She never did in moments like this. She rerouted power, pushed the engines harder than safety rules allowed. The ship shuddered, but it held. The alien fleet watched. They expected chaos. They expected violence. Instead they saw precision. The human ship latched onto the station, cutting through twisted metal. Human rescue teams moved into the dark halls without hesitation. There was no shouting, no panic. Only movement and purpose. Inside the station, fire burned in some sections. In others, the cold of space pulled the air away. People were trapped everywhere, aliens of many species, frightened and injured. Michael led one team forward. The air was thin. Alarms screamed. He stepped over broken panels and floating tools. "Stay with me," he told the survivors. "We're getting you out." Some looked at him in fear. They knew the stories. Monsters. Killers. Unstable creatures. But his hands were steady as he sealed a cracked suit. His voice was calm as he guided them toward safety. Ashley worked deeper inside the station. She rerouted failing power lines with bare hands protected only by thin gloves. Sparks burned her sleeves. She ignored the pain. "Hold for 10 seconds, she said over the comm. "That's not enough time," someone replied. "It's all we have," Ashley said. "Move." The lights flickered back on just long enough for a group of trapped workers to escape. The system failed again seconds later. Ashley leaned against the wall, breathing hard, but she smiled. Outside, alien observers recorded everything. They saw humans move toward danger, not away from it. They saw humans shield others with their own bodies when debris fell. They saw humans return again and again even when ordered to pull back. One alien officer spoke softly. "They should have stopped." "They didn't," another replied. Michael's team reached the last section of the station. A large breach pulled at the air, dragging loose objects toward space. A small group of survivors clung to a support beam. Michael secured a line and moved forward. The pull was strong. His suit alarms screamed warnings. "Captain, fall back," his crew said. "Not yet," Michael answered. He reached the survivors, locking each one to the line. The last was a child, small and shaking. The child looked at him with wide eyes. "You're human?" the child whispered. Michael nodded. "Yes." The child waited for something else. Fear. Pain. Death. Instead, Michael pulled the child close and turned his body to block the pull of space. His own suit took the strain. They were dragged back just in time. The breach widened, tearing the section apart. Michael hit the floor hard, armor cracked, breath knocked from his lungs. But the survivors were alive. Ashley met them at the airlock. Her face was streaked with sweat and ash. She helped pull them inside, hands shaking now that the danger had passed. The human ship disengaged from the station as it finally broke apart. The relief fleet moved in to collect the rescued. Silence filled the command channels. Finally, an alien commander spoke. Human captain, they said. Why did you risk your ship? Michael looked at the ruined station on the screen. Because people were there. That is all? The commander asked. Michael nodded. That's enough. The reports were sent across the galaxy. Analysts replayed the footage. Again and again they watched humans choose danger. Choose exhaustion. Choose pain. The word monster appeared less often in those reports. Instead, new words appeared. Rescuers. Protectors. Humans. And for the first time, the galaxy began to wonder if it had been wrong all along. The second disaster came without warning. A mining colony near the outer routes went dark in a single hour. Power failed. Gravity systems collapsed. The colony began to tear itself apart, piece by piece, drifting into open space. Emergency signals spread fast, but help was slow to arrive. Many fleets turned away. The area was unstable. Too dangerous. Human ships did not turn away. David stood in the command center of a small human cruiser. The screens showed chaos, sections of the colony spinning, fires burning, life signs blinking out one by one. We don't have much time, David said. His voice was calm even as the situation grew worse. We evacuate in waves. Start with the injured and the young. But the structure is failing, an officer warned. If it collapses we could lose ships. David nodded. I know. We go anyway. The human ships moved in close. Too close. Debris struck their hulls. Alarms rang but no one slowed. Inside the colony, Lauren worked in a temporary medical bay. It was little more than a sealed corridor with lights and portable beds. The air smelled of smoke and metal. Wounded beings lay everywhere, different shapes, different colors, all in pain. Lauren moved from one to another, hands steady, voice gentle. Breathe slowly. You're safe now. I know it hurts. Stay with me. Hours passed. She did not notice. She did not eat. She did not rest. She just kept moving. Outside, alien fleets watched from a distance. Their commanders argued. The risk is too high. This is not our responsibility. They are human. Let them handle it. Some ships pulled back even farther, their crews uneasy. They remembered the old warnings. Humans were dangerous. Humans were reckless. They did not understand what they were seeing. David coordinated the evacuation without pause. He tracked every shuttle, every life sign. When one transport was damaged, he rerouted another. When a corridor collapsed, he changed the plan instantly. A junior officer looked at him. Sir, we should withdraw. This colony won't hold. David's jaw tightened. Not yet. But we've already saved many, the officer said. Not enough, David replied. In the medical bay, Lauren's hands began to shake. Her vision blurred. She leaned against the wall for a moment, forcing herself to stay awake. A child cried out nearby. Lauren pushed herself forward again. An alien nurse watched her quietly. You should rest, the nurse said. Lauren shook her head. Later. There may not be a later, the nurse replied. Lauren smiled faintly. Then we keep going. The colony shuddered. A deep vibration passed through the structure. Warning lights flashed red. Evacuation teams withdraw immediately, a distant alien commander ordered over open channels. David heard it. He ignored it. All human teams, he said calmly, finish your sectors. Then move. The alien fleets pulled back. One by one, their ships retreated to safe distance. They watched as human shuttles continued to fly in and out of the breaking colony. A section collapsed. One human ship was struck hard, spinning out of control. Another human vessel moved in, shielding it, taking the impact instead. Observers recorded everything. Inside the medical bay, Lauren finally collapsed. She slid to the floor, her back against the wall, breathing shallow and fast. The alien nurse knelt beside her. You stayed too long, the nurse said. Lauren closed her eyes. Did we get them out? Yes, the nurse answered. All of them. Lauren nodded once, then lost consciousness. The final evacuation was messy and rushed. The last human shuttle barely escaped before the colony tore itself apart. The explosion sent debris across the area, forcing all ships to retreat. Silence followed. David sat in his chair, shoulders heavy. He looked at the final count. Lives saved. Lives lost. He focused on the first number. A message came through from an alien commander. The tone was different now. Slower. Uncertain. You should not have stayed, the commander said. David answered simply. We could not leave. The reports spread quickly after that. But they were not like the old ones. They did not speak of aggression. They spoke of refusal to abandon others. They spoke of humans staying when retreat was easier. Analysts read the reports again and again. Confusion replaced fear. Questions replaced certainty. If humans were monsters, why did they choose sacrifice? No one had a clear answer. But the story had changed. And the galaxy felt it. Jessica worked alone most nights. The council archives were quiet after the sessions ended. Long halls stretched under dim lights. Data stacks floated in the air, layer after layer of recorded history. Most analysts avoided the deepest records. They were old, damaged, and difficult to translate. Jessica went there anyway. She had read the recent reports. The rescues. The sacrifices. The confusion spreading through the council. The old label, monster, no longer fit what everyone was seeing. So she searched for where it began. She traced the word back through time. Each record pointed to another, older one. Warnings copied from warnings. Fear repeated so often it became fact. Finally, she reached the earliest entries. First contact. The images were rough and broken. Early human ships appeared on the screen, small and worn. They were not part of a fleet. They were scattered, damaged, and alone. Then the threats appeared. Not peaceful explorers. Not diplomats. Predators. Entire systems consumed. Planets stripped bare. Species erased so completely that only warnings remained. The records named them extinction-level forces. Nothing negotiated with them. Nothing survived them without fighting back. Jessica leaned closer. Humans had met these threats early in their space travel. Too early. They had been weak, outnumbered, unprepared. And yet they fought. She watched humans abandon colonies to draw enemies away. She saw them overload their own stations to stop advancing fleets. She saw them lose worlds and keep going. Every battle was marked the same way. Last stand. Defensive action. Survival response. The word monster appeared for the first time after one of these battles. It was not written by humans. It was written by observers who arrived late and only saw the aftermath. Burned ships. Shattered worlds. Human vessels still standing. Jessica felt a slow, heavy understanding settle in her chest. They were not monsters. They were survivors who had learned that hesitation meant extinction. She compiled the findings carefully. No emotion. No accusation. Just evidence. Context. Cause and effect. When she finished, the data file was larger than most council reports. She sent it to John. John was a senior representative. Calm. Respected. Not human. Not hostile. He believed in order and truth even when it was uncomfortable. He reviewed the report in silence. When he finished, he requested a full council session. The hall filled again, but this time the mood was different. No recordings of human attacks played. No warnings scrolled across the walls. John stood at the center platform. "We have misunderstood," he said simply. He activated the display. The early threats appeared. Species after species erased. The scale of destruction was clear. Council members shifted in their seats. "These forces no longer exist," John continued, "because humanity met them." The images changed. Human fleets stood between civilian worlds and advancing destruction. They did not chase conquest. They did not expand borders. They held lines. Again and again. They fought wars no one else could survive, John said. Not to rule. Not to dominate. But because losing meant the end of their species. Jessica watched from the side as silence spread through the chamber. John finished with the last image. A human evacuation convoy shielding alien refugees during an ancient conflict. The date was centuries old. The behavior we labeled as aggression, John said, was defense refined by necessity. No one spoke. Some council members lowered their eyes. Others stared at the display, seeing old records with new meaning. The word monster appeared one last time on the screen. John removed it. "What we feared," he said, "was not cruelty. It was resolve." The session ended without debate. That alone was unheard of. Later, Jessica stood by the observation window watching stars drift past. John joined her. "You knew this would unsettle them," he said. Jessica nodded. "Truth usually does." John looked thoughtful. "They shaped themselves to face horrors we never had to." "Yes," Jessica replied. "And then we punished them for surviving." Far across the chamber, human envoys waited. Quiet. Patient. The same way they always had. The council would need time. Change was slow. But the foundation had cracked. The galaxy had called them monsters because it did not understand the world that made them. Now it did. And that knowledge could never be erased. The council chamber felt different that day. The same wide hall stood under the same soft lights, but the tension that once filled the space was gone. Voices were lower. Movements were slower. No warning symbols glowed on the walls. Daniel stood near the archive console, his hands resting at his sides. He was not a leader or a hero. He was a records officer, tasked with watching history change as it happened. On the central display, the human archive file was open. It had once been marked in red. Now it was gray. A council clerk read aloud, voice steady but careful. Classification update approved. Humanity is no longer listed as a hostile threat. No alarms sounded. No protests rose. Just quiet acceptance. Daniel watched as lines of old text faded. Words that had shaped centuries disappeared one by one. Unpredictable. Violent. Monster. They were replaced slowly, as if the system itself needed time to accept the change. Resilient species. High endurance. Defensive response pattern. A murmur moved through the chamber, not of fear, but of reflection. Daniel remembered the first time he had studied the human file. He had been younger then, newly assigned. The warnings had felt absolute. Humans were danger. Humans were chaos. But now he remembered the footage he had seen recently. Human ships holding position while others escaped. Human medics collapsing only after the last patient was safe. Human commanders staying behind when retreat was offered. The records had forced the council to look again. A senior council member rose slowly. The archives will reflect context, they said. No more isolated events. No more fear without cause. Daniel updated the system as the vote passed. Each approval felt heavy, like placing a stone that would last for generations. Across the chamber, human representatives stood quietly. They did not cheer. They did not smile much. They simply waited. Daniel noticed this. When the final confirmation signal appeared, the display shifted again. A new section opened beneath humanity's classification. Galactic allies. Protectors in crisis zones. Survivors of extreme environments. Daniel swallowed. These were not light words. They carried responsibility. Trust. The council leader spoke once more. Let it be recorded that humanity's history of conflict arose from necessity, not desire. Silence followed. This time it felt right. Later, Daniel walked through the archive halls alone. The lights followed his path, illuminating shelves of stored memory. He stopped at one terminal and replayed an early council warning broadcast. It spoke of monsters. He closed it. Then he opened a recent rescue report. It showed humans pulling strangers from wreckage, their own ships burning behind them. He left that one open. Elsewhere, news spread across the galaxy. Not in dramatic announcements but in quiet updates. Database changes. Training manuals revised. Border warnings softened. On distant worlds, officers noticed something strange. Human ships were no longer avoided. They were requested. A trading outpost sent a message asking for human engineers. A frontier colony requested human security advisors. No one used the word monster anymore. Daniel stood once more before the human archive. He made the final edit himself. Under notes and observations he typed a short sentence. Humans respond to danger with resistance, not cruelty. He paused, then added another. They endure so others may live. When he finished, he leaned back, exhausted. James passed by the archive window on his way out of the chamber. Daniel watched him stop and look up at the updated file. James did not say anything. He only nodded once, as if acknowledging something long overdue. Daniel understood that nod. The galaxy had not given humans something new. It had returned something taken long ago. Understanding. That night, the council hall lights dimmed as usual. But the red warning glow did not return. It was gone for good. Across the stars, stories began to change. Parents told their children not of monsters in the dark, but of beings who stood against it. The galaxy remembered at last. Not the fear. Not the legends. But the humans.